So good to see you. आजा आजा आप ठीक है मैं आपको मैं आपको अच्छे से
पीछे आकर बेड आ रहा है भूल गया था सब
Yeah, just 1 second. And into this camera also 1 second.
पीछे आधा
Yes, please. Sir, center. Sir, center.
Yes, absolutely.
उसके मार
उल्टी बुक है
उसकी वो तेरे फ्रेम में देख फोटो ये करो अच्छा बोले इधर खुद पर क्या करें भाई तो लाइट बढ़ा रखा है
extra the city. He went up to Games Corner.
Beyond that, you know. But how you did it last time?
Hey, what's up? What's up?
ठीक है I've been shooting it since I'm not from Marine Drive.
अरे हीरो होंडा
विलेज आ रहा है कंटिन्यूस
Anyway, I just built the pilot bus. Just saying I'm afraid. Yours are better. Why not? Yours are better. They're very elegant.
Good evening, everybody. We now begin the proceedings for the evening. On behalf of Penn Random House India,
on one of the pages he has written, less is more. So we will try to start the function as fast as possible. It's truly a privilege to be here. And I used to live in a small town in Garhwal where I used to watch Barrister Vinod in those days. That were my school days. My mother always used to wait and never used to serve dinner. Nothing happened. But truly it's a pleasure, sir. And while we're talking about the non-conformist, we have also the pleasure of having Mr. Dharkar here. And I was reading about him. It's from a mechanical engineer to a tennis player and to a publisher to a writer and God knows what and what. And I think that's what he also lives up to it. Without much of ado, I welcome you all and thank you very much for your patience and to wait. And as I said earlier, good things always come a bit late and we're starting something very good. We are also launching this book in Delhi on 25th of September and would look forward to your blessings and if you can forward it to your friends and bring everyone out there in Delhi on 25th September at India Habitat Center. At City Book Leaders, we follow the trend of speaking about books, where leaders come and talk about books. And also, while you buy the book and you get it signed, you get this pencil, plantable pencil free. I was just telling you to Deepti ji that how the tomato and coriander grows out of it. And good things definitely are being sown, and this book is definitely an example of it, sir. This has been by the courtesy of one of our supporters, Ritesh Raul Foundation, a young entrepreneur who's here with us today. He has all the way come from Delhi, sorry. To take this forward, I would now request, for the unveiling of the book, I would request Millie, who was already here, but I will call her again. She is the publisher from Penguin. Preeti, who is the marketing head of Penguin, to come onto the stage. Would request Mr. Venu Nair, who is the Chief Commercial Officer of Trent Limited. Under the Trent, they manage Westside, Landmark, and Zudio. Ladies, you know whom to approach for the discounts. And none other than Mr. Anil Dharkar, please on the stage. Mr. Balraj Sahni, the author of this book, and none other than Shri Amitabh Bachchan ji. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for all the people to unveil the book. Stand next to the chair, sir, in case that's... You can stand next to the chair, he can sit in case he wants to.
No.
Once the book has to be unveiled, sir. I now hand over this first now. Sorry.
Here we are. Are we all here? We can do that ourselves. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. It's lovely to see a full house in spite of the weather. Mr. Bachchan has been on a tour of the city, which he didn't intend to, but he's here. As always, he never lets anyone down. Parikshit, let me start with you. Your father died in 1973. That's 46 years ago.
59. He was 59.
He was 59, but it was 46 years ago that he died. My question is, why did it take you so long to write the book? Why didn't you do it earlier?
Sir, I wouldn't have, even if I tried very hard, had it not been for a couple of people who started kicking me in the shins. One was an editor about 5-6 years ago in Delhi. Then there was a gentleman called Ali Peter John, who's sitting somewhere here. And a friend of mine from LA, a lady called Sayal, Hershey Sayal Gill. They just got onto my neck and caught me and said, "Chadi leke ke likho." And I had no way of getting out, sir. I had to write. But the strange thing is that once I started writing it, when I was given the advice by Ali, pehle khopdi mein pakao. So that was a very great revelation. The moment I started thinking about it, a flood of memories came back, and the laptop opened and it all came out in torrents. And the strange thing is that I wrote the first 2 chapters, and then the book wrote itself. I didn't know how it happened.
Do you think someone was guiding you?
I had the feeling, sir. I had strangely felt the presence of my father very strongly, and I felt I owed it to him to. I mean, people know him as a fine actor, but there are very few people like brother Amitabh and his dad, who was very close to my father, who knew him more than as just an actor. So I thought it's high time people came to know him about the other side of him, as a father, as a brother, as a friend, as a husband. So that's what made me. I felt that I owed it to him, because now I'm getting on in years myself. It's high time I wanted my kids to know about him, because they were born after he passed away.
But tell me, was it an experience that made you sad or happy, or because there are a lot of very touching moments and some very difficult portions in the book, which must have been quite cathartic to write, and were they difficult to write?
Sir, I'd like to recite a poem by Shelley. We look before and after and pine for what is not. And our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. And our sweetest dreams are those that sing of saddest thought. So there was an element of elevation at times, and of course, an underlying sadness, which I feel all sons feel when they miss their parents, their fathers. So at certain moments, I became very emotional. And at other moments, I remembered the good moments when we were together in Gulmarg, for instance, where we joked around and fooled around in the Dal Lake, for instance. So there were happy moments, but there were a lot of sad moments. And many chapters, I couldn't help weeping. because, I mean, I brought back, I saw him in a light that I'd never seen in him before.
Writing made you see him in that light.
Well, I'm now a lot older than what he was when he died. I'm nearing my 80th year now. So, in those years, I didn't understand him. I was much younger. But now when the memories came back and I looked back and I realized it's very difficult to understand your parents in entirety, you see. And I realized that he was much greater than I had thought him to be. Many sides of him which were revealed to me. He always said a man and his performance should be like an iceberg. I feel the same way about Amitabh Bachchan Sahab. It should be 1/3 above the water and 3/4 below.
2/3.
2/3 below, sorry. 1/3 above the water, 2/3 below. Because that's what doesn't show. But that's what gives weight and solidity to the iceberg. So I got a glimpse of that 2/3 below the water. And that shook me up.
Wonderful. Amitabh, you've done a really nice forward to the book. Are you going to read it? Oh, lovely. Please, yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Never have the speakers that came before me been as subtle as they were regarding the word late. And I think I counted about 5 times when they mentioned late and kind of gave me a side look and saying, "You're late, buddy." I just want to clarify this. I was told that the function was at the NCPA, and when I was touching Marine Drive, my office tells me, it's actually Taj Lands End, sir. So you can imagine turning around and coming here about 15 minutes late is quite a miracle. Parikshit called one day and said, couldn't you write the foreword to this book that I'm writing on Balraj, and I readily agreed. I thought I'd just read it out because anything else that I say today would not be able to go beyond what I've already expressed. Be like Balraj Sahni. He's in the film industry, yet out of it. So advised my father, soon after my first encounter with the film world on a private visit, seeking a job. Some of my experiences were disturbing. They troubled me and gave me reason to believe that maybe I was making a mistake in my choice. But no, father was right. Balraj was the epitome of my father's vision. When he looked at you with his endearing smile, extending his arms in embrace, and spoke, you felt it was your heart that spoke, not his. It was as though the air around him came from a different world, a world that embodied gentility, the goodness of nature, the resonance of divinity. And as I drive past his home in Juhu, as I often do, I cannot but look at it in despair. Time and desolation have ravaged it and added to it what did not belong to its owner. Diverse conditions are the fatalities of life, and the house symbolizes this reality. But I believe that even though appearances may change, structures may decay, the purity of the heart endures, lives, and breathes. And as Parikshit sets about putting his pen to paper to narrate his father's life, I send my heartfelt best wishes and look upon him with gratitude, for he will narrate what he would need to know about the celebrated and distinguished soul called Balraj Sahni. I profess to be an actor by profession, and some of my work-related observations guide us in our careers. When I saw Balraj on the screen, it was not the character he was portraying I saw, but only the purity of his heart. The way he moved, the way he spoke, and the way he expressed himself were unique and straight from the heart. वो जब डायलॉग बोलते थे तो ऐसा लगता था कि यही सही है. Commented a person when I asked him what he thought about Balraj as an actor. There was a refined smoothness about him in all his performances. If I could have, I would have run up to him on the screen, touched his feet, and embraced him. His cultured and literary background was evident, as I perceived during his meetings and reflective moments with my father. He always came across as one who lived life on his own terms, never derogatory about others and their beliefs, yet respectful to his own. There was a simplicity in his being, in entertaining you with a cup of tea in his home, inviting you to play a game of table tennis in the patio in his home, the gentle wave of his hand as he passed by you on his horse, ridden without any frills in Kashmir, quietly without accoutrements, climbing up to Gulmarg. I know, for I was a party to all. And every time I drive past his home in Juhu, I recall with great affection the man of immense grace and nobility, Balraj Sahni.
Thank you. You said in your foreword that he was in the industry and out of it. What do you mean by that?
This is actually given to me by my father. I was on a mission in the early years, around 68, 69, to the city of Mumbai to seek a job in the film industry, and I was asked to do a screen test, which I did, thanks to some very well-known people. I'm not going to name them now. And later on in the evening, they said, well, you know, you're here for a day. We are going out to a party. Why don't you come along? And I went along with them. And at the party, I saw things which were kind of disturbing. I mean, everyone was happy, and they were having their drinks and eating their food. And then some discussion took place between one of the celebrities and a journalist, and a fight broke out. And when I say a fight, it was actually a physical fight. You know, they were punching each other and stuff like that. And what was really amazing was that the hostess, who was also a very prominent celebrity, was unconcerned with this punch-up and was serving, what would you like to have, sir? And then just serving the food all over. And I felt this was rather odd, so I just stepped out of the house. And when I came back, I narrated this to my father and said, you know, you have to be like Balrajji. You have to be in it and get out of it.
How would you describe Balraj Sahni's acting style?
I just mentioned it. He was just, you never felt that he was performing.
Yes.
He was always so real, so simple. And as I said, when you ask somebody on the street, he said, "वो जब बोलते थे तो ऐसा लगता था कि यही सही है." That's a great compliment.
Right.
Because many of us are incapable of getting that kind of compliment from a common man on the street. And when he thinks that this is what his performance was like, then you tend to believe it.
By the way, Parikshit, this is a really well-written book, so you obviously inherited some of the writing ability from your father, who was a writer, apart from being an actor. And your uncle,
Bachchan
Sahni,
yeah.
who was a full-time writer.
Yeah, he was a full-time writer.
So there's something has come into you, which I wish you had realized earlier.
I don't know, Anil Saab. I think, again, Shelley has said that poetry should come to a man like leaves to a tree. Otherwise, it needn't come at all. So, writing is something that comes to you like leaves to a tree, you know. It is something, I mean, it can't be learned, it can't be copied, it cannot be inherited, I think.
He's a poet too. Yeah.
No, really, it's something, I don't know, I've been writing since I was in school, I've been writing since I was in college, I did literature in college. And I've been writing ever since, but nobody took it seriously. They said, "Ye to actor aadmi hai yaar." क्या लिख के ले आ रहे हो? I went to several papers and said, please publish this article or this little thing I've printed. Some people did, and the others dismissed me as being, yeah, you're an actor.
But you had a story published in the Illustrated Weekly of India.
Yeah, that credit goes to a lady called Anis Jung. I wrote about 2 or 3 paragraphs and she saw them. And she said, sit down now and finish them. And she made me sit till about 3 o'clock in the morning on my underwood and type it out. And I kept saying, yaar, chodo ye, kai ke liye kar rahi ho, thak gaya hu. Khatam karo, khatam karo, khatam karo. And she took it and gave it to the Illustrated Weekly and they liked it. And it was published. That was Anis's doing. I think I owe her a great debt of gratitude because she's the one who started the whole ball rolling, you know.
Right. In the book, you often referred to your stormy relationship with your father.
Yeah.
But I also saw a lot of extremely loving episodes. So it was a kind of mix, right? But he was never harsh with you.
No. On the contrary, I think he told me very early in life that just forget that I'm your dad. Let's be good friends. I had my first cigarette with him. I had my first glass of beer with him. He said, don't do anything behind my back. Early in life, he even said, don't call me dad. Don't call me Pitaji. Call me by my name. So he was like a friend for the rest of his life. He was a very strange man. We discussed things that no father would discuss with his son. And he never ever raised his voice. He didn't correct me. He didn't tell me I was doing something wrong. He didn't yell at me or nothing. He just kept saying, you're a great guy. You to just learn to live and live to learn. That was his motto.
So were you a spoiled child?
Beg your pardon?
Were you a spoiled child?
I was, yes. I was thoroughly spoiled. Thoroughly spoiled. Absolutely. And I think many of us star sons are. Not all, of course, their parents are. But I lived in boarding schools. Mainly, I didn't live with the family, ever, almost. Only in the holidays. And in the boarding schools, I was singled out. Arey bhai, Balraj Sahni saab ka beta hai. So I thought I was a big shot, which harmed me a great deal. It was only in Russia that I felt very happy because nobody knew who the hell I was. Nobody knew who was Balraj Sahni, and I felt I was myself. But in college and in schools and where I went, they thoroughly spoiled me. Guys were nice to me because, arey bhai, Sahni saab ka beta hai. So that's it.
You must have grown up under the shadow of your father.
Indeed.
Well, that brief answer doesn't give me a lead into another question. You could be more helpful.
Okay. I'm going to narrate a story then. I've said this many times before in several other events, but because you've raised this issue, I think I'll talk about it. I'm referring to a poem my father wrote. It's called Wasiyat Nama. Every one of us at a certain age writes a will. And I won't go into the recitation of the poem, but I'll just give you the essence. He says that, in the poem, he says that, a time comes in your age when your friends and well-wishers say, umr kafi ho gayi hai yaar, ek wasiyat nama likh do, life ka kuch pata nahi hota hai, और जो कुछ भी देना है अपने परिवार को, बेटों को, ये सब अभी से तय कर दो, क्योंकि बेटों को भी बड़ा आजकल सामना करना पड़ता है अपने आप को साबित करने के लिए कि हाँ भाई ये मेरे पिता हैं. तो he wrote the whole thing, and one of the things he said is, look, I don't have much to give and leave behind for my children. I just have my written works, and later on in his life he used to go for a walk and pick up a stone, and he used to find an imagery in it and draw a few lines, and it would come out. And he says, these are the rocks and these poems that I have. But some of the most important thing that he said in that poem, which was that what are you going to leave behind? And he said,
Can you recite that bit?
Put saput kyu dhan sanchay, put kaput kyu dhan sanchay. And then he wrote the last line. And he said, Mere bete hone se mere uttaradhikari nahi honge. मेरे बेटे बेटे होने से मेरे उत्तराधिकारी नहीं होंगे, जो मेरे उत्तराधिकारी होंगे वो मेरे बेटे होंगे. So Parikshit is an excellent example. He is the true inheritor of his father, and therefore you are the true Uttaradhikari.
But there was one aspect of Balraj Sahni which I would never have suspected, which comes out in the book. And I'll give you both that incident. I actually wanted Parikshit to read it, but he says a bit long. So very briefly, Balraj Sahni was very fond of swimming. And he took, how old were you when he took you into the sea?
I think about 10 maybe.
Okay, so 10-year-old Parikshit goes with his father into the sea. And the sea is very rough. And Parikshit says, you know, I'm scared, I don't want to go into this. He says, come on, and coaxes him into the water. And then they find themselves being dragged into the sea, deeper and deeper and deeper.
The tide was going out.
Yes, the tide was going out. And this little boy, and I think anyone would have been scared. I would have been screaming. And it goes on, and Balraj Sahni is absolutely calm, and he's saying, why are you worried? The tide is going in, it'll come back, and we'll come back with it. So don't fight it, just relax. You know how to swim, and the sea makes you float, so just stay there. And they went deeper and deeper into the sea. And then finally, they find a little boat coming to rescue them. And there's an Englishman paddling a kayak. And he comes near them. And Balraj Sahni says, go away, we don't want you. So Parikshit is saying, but Dad, we must get into that boat. Someone's come to save us. And he just refuses. And when he sees it's an Englishman, he says, you Englishman, we don't want you here. You go. So of course the Englishman has some choice swear words for Indians and goes back. And these two stay in that water for 2 hours. And then the tide goes back and there they are. That must have been traumatic for you.
Yeah, I shivered.
Mike.
I thought that was the end of my life. I mean, I was petrified absolutely. And I thought Dad had finally got mad because he started singing songs. And he started floating and he started joking around. And I said, "Ye pata nahi kya ho gaya? Dad ko yahan mar rahe hain, yahan pe daddy." And then this Englishman, he came and said, "Come on, get into the boat," because a lot of people had collected on the seashore. We were about a mile out, and they guessed that they're in trouble. So this Englishman came, and I got hold of the boat immediately because I thought, God said, he said, "Chodo, just leave the boat." It was an order. I said, I think Dad has cracked up or something. Here is a guy who come to, sort of save us. But Dad told this fellow, he said, "This Englishman, we don't need you. We can look after ourselves. Please go back." And that fellow said a lot of things about Indians. You crazy Indians, that you want to kill yourself and your son also. And yes, sir, sure enough, we floated after that for a long while. He kept singing revolutionary songs. He was a Marxist. Mil ke chalo, mil ke chalo, mil ke chalo. Are bhai, mil ke chalo. All these sort of things. I said, yaar, kya mil ke chalo, yahan mar jayenge. And ye waqt ki awaaz hai, mil ke chalo, and all that jazz. But anyway, it was I can't tell you, if you only have to experience it, the tides during the monsoons are horrendous. When they drag you out, I mean, you can't hold on to the bottom because they just pull you out. And when it sent you back, it was like a miracle because I did start swimming a little bit. He had taught me a little bit. And it really literally threw us on the sand. We left near Palm Grove Hotel, which is called, I don't know, something else now, and came out at the creek, which is about 2-3 miles away. And then I went to sleep because I was exhausted. And I was glad that my life was saved. And Dad looked at me, smiled. He was smiling when I opened my eyes. He pulled me up and he said, "Dekho, beta." There are going to be a lot of times when these sort of situations will arise in your life. And remember, the tide always comes back. So always ride the tide, don't fight the tide. And that has helped me through a lot of many crises in life.
Well, that could have been the last lesson you learned in your life, but
I thought it was.
Balraj Sahni was a real Marxist, and he very deeply believed in the Marxist philosophy.
Absolutely, completely, utterly.
And you were talking of him singing revolutionary songs. And
Mil ke chalo, mil ke chalo, mil ke chalo.
But there are wonderful scenes in the book which shows his Marxist leanings. There's one of these high society parties where he comes wearing a dhoti and
Lungi kurta, Punjabi style.
And he doesn't like this kind of socializing with, this useless chatter and pretentious chatter. So he's constantly pulling everyone down. And then he finds a waiter who's also Punjabi. And he finds he's speaking a different kind of Punjabi from what he knows. So he gets a drink for the waiter. They sit on the floor and they have a long chat. Of course, the hostess is not very pleased. And anyway, the story goes on. I'll leave you to read it. There's also the story about shooting, where everyone has to wear jackets. Can you talk about that? You remember what I'm talking about?
Sorry. You see, I was not trained as an actor. I did my college work. I went to the institute in Moscow to study film direction and writing and editing. And I don't know, I met Nehru there. There's a separate story. I'm writing about it for you. Send it to you for perusal. And he gave me a speech, and he said that, India was, is your mother, you should go back and all that. So I came back to India full of feelings that one must serve one's motherland and all that, because the Russians really somewhere in those days, Soviet Union, they looked down on India and I didn't like it. So I said, I must be of service. How can I be of service? As an actor, what can I do? And I really became an actor because of Dad. People thought, yeah, आदमी तो ठीक लग रहा है, थोड़ा बहुत तो सीख लिया होगा बाप से. बना दो इसको एक्टर, ले लो फिल्म में. But I made a film, a banner, a production called Balraj Sahni Productions. And I made some television serials because making films is a very tough job. And through those, I thought maybe I could be of service to the country and, say some good things through those scripts. And one day I was shooting with these, just for Yash Raj, Yashji's video division. He liked one of my stories and he said, you make it. And one day I was shooting till very late in Rajkamal Studios. So there was overtime ho gaya. So I told this, my production guy, I said, keep the important guys, jinke close-ups lene hai. Baki junior artists ko bolo, they can go. And there was one very, very old man, he must have been in his 70s, who didn't go. और 3 बज गए, मैंने कहा, sir, I went to him, I said, sir, आप क्या कर रहे हो? थक गए होगे, please go. He said, sir, नहीं, मैं आपकी वजह से नहीं रुका. ये बलराज साहनी प्रोडक्शन है, इसके नाम की वजह से रुका हूँ. और वो इसलिए क्योंकि आप तो ब्रदर बोलते रहते हैं सबको. वो वाकई हमारे ब्रदर थे. I said, please explain. He said, देखो ऐसा था, हम लोग शूटिंग कर रहे थे. In those days there was no AC, and we had to wear jackets sometimes.
That time there was no AC.
Yeah, and after shots, the junior artists were supposed to stay back on the set and not take off their jackets. But the stars were supposed to take off their jackets and sit in front of the fans. But they noticed that Dad had not taken off his jacket. And the assistant came several times to tell him, Sari Saab, aap utar dijiye coat, garmi ho rahi hai, pasine aa rahe hain aapko. He didn't say anything for a couple of minutes, and then he said, देखो, अगर मुझे पसीने आ रहे हैं तो इन जूनियर आर्टिस्ट के साथ क्या हो रहा है? इन्होंने सब ने कोट पहने हुए हैं. Sir, that is not allowed. इनको तो ऑर्डर है कि इनको पहन के रखने पड़ेंगे. तो फिर हम भी पहन के रखेंगे. It is only when the director came and told these guys, okay, take off your jackets, that he took off his jacket. So that old man said, वो हमारे भाई थे. आप तो ऐसे ही बोलते रहते हैं. And he had that innate love for not just humanity, yes, but also for, the underdog.
And the other very significant thing about his acting was, this is the human side, and the acting side, he was a method actor.
I don't know what that's about, but yeah.
Right? And like in Garam Hawa, in order to play the role, he actually went around barefoot in the heat.
Yeah.
And he got blisters on his feet. To get a feel of the character, he talked to people who were working in similar situations. And there's that incident of you as a boy having to spit on his face.
Yeah, that was something I wish you hadn't reminded me about. Imagine asking you to spit on your father's face. Well, it was in the script. We were doing a film called Udham Singh, and this jackass of a writer had written, Dad was playing a Gandhian, and I was playing Udham Singh. So there was a big fight between us. And in the end of that fight, I spit on him. So I did the scene. I mugged up my lines, and when the spitting time came, I spat in front of him and said, "Aap jaiye, mere saath zyada baat mat kijiye, thu." And the director said, "Fantastic, very nice shot." Dad said, "Ek minute, one more." I thought ये शायद डैडी का कुछ रिएक्शन अपना गलत था, फिर से शॉट लेंगे, फिर शॉट दिया, फिर ऐसे आप देखे जाइए, मैं देख लूँगा मैं आपको, थू. He said, "Come here. You didn't spit on me." I said, "Sir, I spat in front of you. The script पे क्या लिखा है? You spit on my face." I said, "Papa ji, ये तो बड़ा मुश्किल होगा, spitting on your face." And he said, देखो, that director said, "साली साहब, इसका expression ठीक लग रहा है. इधर करे, थूके, उधर थूके." आप डैडी ने कुछ 11-12, उस ज़माने में there was no digital. The film was very expensive,
Film stock.
11 or 12 retakes were a lot of money down the drain for the director, the producer. And every time I'd spit, I said that I thought about cleverly that I'd spit on the left, a little on the right. Dad would say, "No, one more." Ultimately, I got the idea that I'll just make the noise. I won't really spit. Okay, देख लेंगे आपको, आप जाइए अपने रास्ते में, देख लूँगा आपको, थू. He said, "एक मिनट इधर आ, मेरे मुंह तक कितने?" सर वो बोल दिया ना सर, इतने दूर लॉन्ग शॉट में क्या दिखाई देगा कि मुंह पे आपकी स्पिट लगी हुई कि नहीं. He said, "No, we have another one." The director, I remember, he almost became bald, poor fellow. He said, "सानी साहब बड़ा नेचुरल लग रहा है." नहीं, ये तो लिखा हुआ है स्क्रिप्ट में. And I just sat there and I said, "Today is the worst day of my life." And then he came to me and he said, "Listen, you're my son. Either stop acting, just leave this profession. But if you do it, then be honest to yourself. I'm not your dad on the set. I'm the Gandhian, I'm the villain. You're Udham Singh. So please, you must make a magic circle. You must know who we are, where we are, with whom we are, why we are here, when we are here." And, but to be frank, I wish you hadn't reminded me of that, sir. I cringe when I think about it, even to this day.
No, but I think it shows an insight into the way he acted and the way he respected the script and the director. And Amitabh, I think you have followed that same philosophy in your career, that you have not, in spite of the stature that you have, you never tried to tell the director what to do or tried to deviate from the script. Am I right?
Yeah, I think that the essence of every film is what comes out of the writer's pen, and I think that needs to be respected. I also believe that he's the one who designs an entire film. He thinks of the characters, he thinks how they should dress, he decides how they will say their lines, he decides the location as to where it's going to be. And I'm sure that this is in conjunction with the director, but if he has gone through so much trouble to do that, I don't think I have any right, if I'm a professional and if I've agreed contractually to follow what the director is going to ask me to do, then I should follow the writer. That they are the most important people in every film. And I just do it out of my respect and regard for the writer. As Balraj was saying, you have the story. Once it's written, I do believe that that is final. If you have a difference, yes, you sit before going onto the set. But once you're in front of the camera, then you don't argue. You just do what is asked of you to do.
But suppose, with your experience, you find that the script could be improved or the shot could be taken in another way, would you not have a friendly word with the director?
I would, yes, but I would leave the final decision to him.
But you would never take over directing as some of our stars have done, surreptitiously.
I'm just about learning how to act. I can't direct at all.
Do you believe in method acting?
Yeah, I really don't know. Parikshit and me are on the same plane. I really don't know what method acting is. But I hear a lot of people saying that, and I hear a lot of people reading books about it. And I have to admit that in one of my sequences, I did try it as a result of an influence after reading these books. And it was fatal. I mean, I was to come exhausted. I don't know if any of you have seen one of my films called Diwar. There's a fight sequence in the garage, and after the fight is over, he comes out exhausted and walks to a tap and he cools himself down. Now, the action sequence was done in Rajkamal's studio, and where he comes out of the garage was at the Bombay port, one of these gates, and that was after about 6 months. So in order to recreate that kind of look and atmosphere and exhaustion, I thought, I needed to prepare myself. So there were about 8, blocks of these, I don't know what you call them, where they store all this stuff. And it's about a mile down the road. So I kept running up and down, and by the time he said action, I actually collapsed because I couldn't stand up even. So that's as far as, method acting is good. And then I read about this famous incident between Laurence Olivier and Dustin Hoffman. Where he did something similar. And when he was exhausted, Laurence Olivier said, "Buddy, why don't you try acting instead of, running up and down?" So everyone has their different interpretation, Parikshit. I can't understand.
I believe that Sir John Gielgud has very correctly said, Sir John Gielgud, great actor. He has said there is no such thing as a method. Every actor has his own method. We all evolve our own methods of acting, But this thing about method acting is, I don't think there is.
I was once spent some time with Dilip Saab, and he was narrating an equally, almost a funny incident. He was with an actor, and he said, the actor came to me and said, "Sir, आप ये जब कोई नाराज होते हैं तब आपकी आंखें लाल कैसे हो जाती हैं? क्या डालते हैं आप उनके?" तो दिलीप सर ने कहा, "मैं कुछ नहीं करता हूँ, थोड़ी देर ऐसे बेंड कर जाता हूँ और खून जो है वो आंख में चला जाता है, उसके बाद मैं खड़ा हो जाता हूँ और आंख लाल हो जाती है." तो this character said, "यार, ये तो fantastic idea है." So just before his shot, he went down, pressed his when we got up, he fainted. fell down. So everyone has their own ideas of how they should, prepare for a scene or do what they want to do. The blood had rushed in all the wrong places.
But you feel that Balraj ji actually did this for every role, right? He got into the character very deeply. He didn't just act. Though there's nothing to denigrate that. I mean, that's another method. But he got into the character. I remember seeing the shooting of Gandhi, Richard Attenborough's, when Ben Kingsley was playing the role. And throughout the day when they were shooting, he stayed in the character of Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, including the posture and everything. So even when the shot was finished, and he had to wait 2 hours for the next shot, and maybe he's having a cup of tea or something, but he would stay in character. And I suppose some people do that. Do you think it helps acting?
I don't know. I mean, I've never spoken to people who practice the art, but this is what I do. I just follow Dilip Saab. Go down. Come up with my eyes red. That's about it. But yes, there are several people who, must be going through a lot of ideas and thoughts and how to get into the character. There was this film, I think it was called 9 Hours to Rama, which was on the assassination of Mahatma Ji, which was eventually banned in India. And there was a character that was playing the role of Godse, and he had just one shot in the film. He had to come and just fire, and that's it. And this guy was from America. He was an Indian who settled in America, and he came, and we happened to know the family he was living with, and they came and said, we have an actor in the house, he's come from America, and he's playing this very important role. And I said, yeah, I'd like to meet him. Kaji, wo 1 महीने से कमरे के अंदर उसने अपने आप को बंद कर दिया है. तो उन्होंने कहा क्यों बंद किया? क्योंकि वो सोच रहा है कि खड़ा होकर के ये बंदूक कैसे चलाएगा. So there are a lot of different stories, of people who practice all kinds of different things. But whether it's worth it or not, I really don't know. Maybe they have a style and method which works. I haven't tried it, and I'm okay.
But Parikshit, in the book, what you say is that this getting involved so much in the character deeply affected him in Garam Hawa.
Yeah, in Garam Hawa.
Because Garam Hawa reflected in a way.
I'll be very frank. There's one thing he believed in implicitly. That's the one thing I know that he took from Stanislavski. That was emotional memory. He always did a shot and which he had lived through, that sort of an event, tried to recall it, and then act it as truly as possible. And talking about Garam Hawa, it's in the book. I was giving a speech about him along with Satyu Saab, M.S. Satyu, the director of the film. And he spoke before me and he said that he made a very big mistake by including the scene which was not in the script, of his daughter dying and he burying her at the graveyard. Now that is one of the finest scenes in the book, in the film. But he said, I wish I hadn't done it because Dad went through hell. Because I think again, emotional memory.
Because his own daughter had died.
Yes, and he equated with that. And I remember one of the things that I forgot to write in the book. I went with him for shooting. I was in school, a film called Aulad. And he had to give a shot where, he's telling the Seth. The Seth has taken his son. His wife has died. So the Seth throws him out of the house. The Seth has adopted the son and he kept shouting at the Seth at the gate. He's been kicked out. Seth, mera beta de de. Mera bacha de de, Seth. He did it so well that everybody clapped. It was, after that it was pack up. And he came home. I sat in the car with him. He was a little out of sorts. I said, sir, bada badhiya shot siga. Bande ro paye. Kehla chup kar. Then we reached home, he stopped the car at the gate and he said, wait a minute, we got to go back. I said, sir, it's pack up, it's wrap. And he said, no, he rang up, I think, both Saigal Saab, it was the director. He said, get the set opened, I have to do that shot again. But Saigal Saab thought that he was crazy because by that time the studios were locked at that time and guys had gone home and started drinking and all that. But Dad got that thing opened and he gave the shot again. But this time, there was no crying. There was stunned silence, absolutely. And I think that film ran because of that one shot.
No, but what was the difference?
The difference was when he came back, I said, Paji, ki load kisi? Sir ne taklif di thi, tusi phir se lighting ki hui. He said, yaar, I just remembered what I felt when your mother died. But when I gave that shot, I gave it mechanically. I wanted to get into the same feelings that I had when your mother died. Therefore, I had to go back and I had to be true. He said, don't act. He used to tell me, believe. Acting is not acting. Acting is believing. So I think he exercised this thing about, emotional memory a lot and always went back. And that, by the way, shot in Garm Hawa, it killed him. And M.S. Satyu said that. He said, I wish I had not put that shot in. But he took it to heart in everything that he did. He took it to heart. He's a very sensitive man. So that was his method.
Can you read a passage from the book?
Sir, he's read the best chapter in the book. Happens to be the one that Amitabh has written, by the way.
You can't read the same one.
That's the foreword. And he's written it, so there's no need for me to read anything else. I don't think there is. If you like, I would, but I'd read a paragraph or so.
Yeah.
Can you get me my iPad, please, ma'am? iPad. तो सर ये मैं जब भी इनको बोलता हूँ इन सारे मेरे यूनिट वाले बैठे हैं यहाँ पे इनके साथ हमने भी सीरियल किया है कि मैंने शिवाजी का रोल किया है so they laugh their guts out. So I have, by the way, written a chapter on shooting for Shivaji. I have written this called Shooting for Shivaji. It's for you guys especially and for the rest of you. Dad was an atheist and did not believe in any religious practices and avoided religion like the plague. Nor did he have much knowledge about the tenets of any religion. I doubt if he had ever read any religious book. He was convinced that there was nothing good at all good about them. But strange to say, his actions were often of a deeply religious nature. He followed many religious doctrines without being aware of it. For instance, the Bible referring to alms says, let not your left hand know what your right hand does, which means do your charitable acts in secret. Dad lived by that axiom without having read the Bible. He never boasted about his altruistic activities and always kept them secret. I found out a few years after he had passed away, when I was asked to play the role of Shivaji, that he was doing just that all his life without letting anyone know. Now this is when I was shooting for Shivaji. And it is during this time that I learned this fact about him. I'll read out one more paragraph and you'll get to know what Shivaji was, what I did in Shivaji. I still don't understand why the producer or director cast me in the role of Shivaji, who was supposed to have been of an athletic build, lean, wiry, energetic, with flashing, penetrating, hypnotic eyes. I was flabby, sluggish, lugubrious, lazy, dull, and had a spectacular paunch. My eyes were as hypnotic as those of a dead fish. I usually had a massive hangover during those days. Those were the days, my friend. we thought they'd never end. I was the least suited to play the role of the great Maratha leader. Dad would have been the right person to play that role. One day I heard somebody saying in a party behind my back, I wonder what Mr. Balraj Sahni would have said if he saw this slob of a son playing the role of Shivaji. Balrajji studied, researched, and lived every role he played. This fellow is a slug. He's an insult to his father's memory. This hurt me. I tried to make amends. I exercised, read a lot of books about Shivaji. But for the world of me, I could not get rid of the paunch. The horse, I apologize for writing this sentence. The horse I rode during the shooting usually let out a startled groan and a huge fart every time I mounted him. I'm sorry about this. I tried belts and cummerbunds around my waist. I tried jogging and calisthenics, but to no avail. I still look like a miniature sumo wrestler. Now I would like to read the entire chapter, just bore you. I'll read the end. You see, Amol Palekar, our friend, had looked at me when I said I'm playing Shivaji and said, Deb, how? Be careful. If you make one small mistake, you will be lynched publicly by the Marathas. Now that didn't help me in performing the role. That made me look very scared. And during this shooting, of course, many things happened, which I don't want to read out. I want to come to Dad right away. Now, one day we were shooting in the countryside close to a small village near a small town in the sugarcane belt, when a bus loaded with some toughies arrived and made straight for me. The unit members were alarmed and fearing the worst fled. Everybody, they left me alone. The toughies walked up to me menacingly and without a word dragged me, this is true, brother, dragged me to one of the buses in which they had come. They shoved me in the front seat. The bus immediately lurched forward and gathered speed. I was sure my time had come. I fingered my sword. It was a blunt and harmless film prop, and decided to put up a brave fight anyway and take as many of the toughies with me to Kingdom Come as I could. I tried to make conversation with the huge muscular fellow sitting next to me, but he stared at me in silence. I prepared myself for a quick and violent end. A surprise awaited me when we arrived at the destination. A spacious but scraggy garden just outside a small village. A makeshift stage had been set up at one end of it. Before the stage squatted a few hundred villagers. So this will be a public execution, I thought. On the stage sat some local dignitaries. I was hurriedly escorted up the stage and unceremoniously plonked in one of the chairs. By now, my courage had abandoned me. I was baffled by what was happening. There was no chance of running anyway because I was flanked by two hefty, tough guys. A gentleman got up and addressed the crowd. He looked at me and smiled wryly. He is obviously enjoying the prospect of what is to come, I thought. But when he spoke, I was dumbfounded. Sir, he said, in his heavily accented Hindi, this garden has been named after your father. It's called Balraj Sahni Udyan. At the beginning of the month of April 1973, we had a terrible drought in this area. There was no water to drink. We were all very in bad shape. It was at the height of this drought that your father drove to the village all by himself in his ambassador car and stayed with us for a week. He said to us, I have brought no water for you. I could not have, even if I tried to. I have come here to share your thirst. That is all I can do. And even though we offered him a small portion of the water, rations that we were guarding for infants and elderly, he refused to drink it. He waited in a tanker set by the government, and then too, he made sure everyone's thirst was first slaked before he took a gulp of water himself. He died 2 weeks later. We have named this garden after him. And we have called you here to tell you that we are very happy that you, his son, are playing the role of the great leader Chhatrapati Shivaji. It was then that something happened that was very un-Shivaji-like. Tears came to my eyes. I wept. I don't know if it was from the sheer relief at being spared a public lynching or from the realization that Dad had done this noble deed so unobtrusively. Any present-day public figure would have informed the press, made a huge noise, and turned it into a great publicity event. My attitude to my role changed after that. I put my heart and soul into it, started to live the role, and much to my own surprise, was able to do some justice to it.
Well done. This shows that Balraj Sahni was in the industry and out of it also. Clear. Do we have time for a Q&A?